Hi, everybody. Jack O'Malley with my weekly update. I normally do it on Wednesday evening. I waited till Thursday to do it because I wanted to attend our joint House and Senate Oversight Committee today with regard to nursing home deaths, and that was the topic, and I'll get to it in a minute. But that's why the report, my update, is Thursday, not Wednesday. Just a couple of things that are obviously important, but not the nursing home issue, which I want to spend some time on. Interesting, last week I was at the Northern Michigan Chamber of Commerce Alliance legislative update. And the governor was there, and she spoke about this new office of rural development. She's very proud of it, and I hope that we get a good director and it actually happens, and good things happen. I'm not here to poo-poo anything that can help rural Michigan, but what I laugh about is what about the 3 years in office where you've done really absolutely nothing for rural Michigan, and in many cases vetoed. Remember the budget vetoes of a couple of years ago? 147 line items, meant most of them affecting rural Michigan. So I appreciate, but understand, I appreciate the Office of Rural Development that she wants to develop, but I cannot not note that finally, and when she does finally acknowledge that rural Michigan needs some focus, it's the election year. So let's just leave it at that. I think you get where I'm headed. A couple other things that I think are interesting. You may have seen it pop up online. We talk about our schools and what should be taught. And what I think is interesting is, and I throw this out there just because, but earlier in the week, the Michigan Democratic Party posted something on their website, which after criticism started, they ripped down. But basically what it said was, this is an article from the Detroit News. They had a post that questioned the role parents have in deciding what is taught in public schools, and it drew criticism from school groups and things like that. Well, the Democratic Party indicated the purpose of public education was to teach students, quote, what society needs them to know. What else here? It goes on to say, and parents who want more input on what their kids are learning, the Post said, have the option to choose to send their kids to hand-selected private schools at their own expense. Again, this is from an article from the Detroit News, which they said the client of the public school is not the parent, but the entire community, the public, according to this post. Again, when they got flack, they pulled it down, but I thought it'd be interesting to read the first paragraph from Michigan statute on schools. In the natural fundamental right, it is the natural fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine the direct care, teaching, and education of their children. The public schools of this state serve the need of the pupil by cooperating with the pupil's parents and legal guardians to develop the pupil's intellectual capabilities and vocational skills in a safe and positive environment. So that post was very telling, in my opinion, but Michigan law contradicts that post completely. So thank you, Detroit News, for running that article. All right, let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? Those are kind of the things that are happening right now. There's other bills and things moving, but I want to focus this week on our oversight committee. Last week we had the UIA in to talk about, again, all things that have gone wrong. And there was just, with the new director, there was so much CYA going on, covering your arse, let's say, for those who might not know. And it was just so frustrating. It's like, answer these questions. Tell us, give us the answers. So this week, we have the Auditor General report comes out that says, hey, we just looked at how many people died in long-term care facilities, which kind of covers a gamut. And it was about 2,500, 3,000 more people than has been officially reported by DHHS. Now, in fairness, the director of DHHS comes out and says, wait a minute here. They used numbers that definitions that we didn't use, and it's not fair, it's not right, and we used the number of the self-reporting, which is what we're supposed to do. And we got into this discussion, and it's so easy to do, and it drives me nuts, but we got into this discussion with Auditor General and then the DHHS and our committee members. Well, what does this definition mean, and what does that and these numbers? And when you start getting into that, your numbers aren't as good as mine, and mine are better than yours. The conversation can get so out of whack, you lose sight of what the real discussion is. So I did my best, and I asked the director. I said, "Okay, I get it. Great. We're not following some definition, and we can haggle on the numbers. But it appears, see, now all of these long-term care facilities, which cover all sorts of facilities, not all of them are required to report things. All right? Got it. Okay. But all of them were under the executive order of bringing COVID positive patients back into their facilities, whatever type exactly they were. Well, at one point, the director said, well, we weren't really enforcing that, and, stop. If it's an executive order, I remember when people were calling me saying, I can't go out in my boat with a motor, right? We didn't know what in the heck was going on. So when this executive order goes out, these nursing homes, they're all under the order, right? And they're doing what they have to do because they don't want to lose their license. They don't know what's going on. They don't want to get fined. They don't, all right? So don't tell me all of a sudden now, Madam Director, that, well, they didn't really have to follow it. BS. Bull hockey. They had to. All right. So let's put that out of the way. So my question was this, or my comment and then my question was, all right, I get it. You can razzle and dazzle and spin and all that crap with all these numbers. I get it. But answer me this. Let's go back almost 2 years. It's hit the fan. You've got sick, elderly people, or vulnerable at the very least, in these homes. And you're getting a report back to you from the ones who voluntarily report. And it's telling you the numbers are climbing. I got it. But, science and data. Let's go back to that term. If you're going to defend and say the reason you're making all these decisions is because of science and data, then you have to do everything you can to accumulate data. So, I said, when you're getting these nursing home calls in and these reports, these long-term care, and you see the deaths, and you're calling these others that don't have to report, when you're calling to make sure they got PPE and you're doing all this, can't you just say, hey, by the way, did anybody die from COVID? Now, I realize that these reports and these numbers might not be exactly things that you would put on a spreadsheet for a final report. But you're in the middle of a battle, right? You are the control center. You're getting the science and data, I'm hearing, right? Don't you try and get as much data as you possibly can? Well, we took the information of the self-reporters. Yeah, but you've got a whole bunch of other long-term cares that aren't supposed to, have to report. Ask them. Well, and here's the answer. Well, because of personal identity and HIPAA, I'm not asking who died. I'm asking, did anybody die? I don't care who they are. I just want the numbers. So I, when making policy, can judge the numbers. So these numbers, in my opinion, because they didn't ask those questions, were deflated. The Auditor General's report says, they were more than what they were saying. So the whole discussion today really bothers me. And the Auditor General's report proves that there were more deaths in long-term care facilities than what were officially reported by the governor's office. And I believe that they were negligent at the very least in not asking those questions, but yet then standing in a podium referring to science and data when it's obvious you weren't trying to get every scrap of data that was out there. And then the other question I asked, and a comment I made was, and were you asking anybody for extra eyeballs on a situation? I don't believe they were, because I remember when the legislature got shut out of any input or any follow-up. So somewhere along the line, the governor and her team chose to go it alone. And that is the problem. When you're only talking to the choir, you don't get real answers. And they did not have outside influence. They didn't have somebody say, hey, why aren't you asking these other long-term care facilities if anybody died? And when I asked why you didn't, don't tell me it's because of HIPAA. Come on. I didn't need to know that John Smith passed away. I just needed to know they had a death. Why? Because that's the data I'm getting to make these decisions when you create another executive order. So these are so important because people need to realize, and my colleague Michelle Hoytinger asked the question, why can't you ever just say, you know what, we made a mistake? Because that's what they did. I don't think they did it negligently. Let's put old people into nursing homes and let them die. Nobody did that. But when you have the arrogance of thinking that you know it all and can make every decision and don't need the help of the legislature or whoever, that's an arrogance that is bad. When you are leading, you need to have some humility and say, I need help. And that is what happened with the governor's team. And I believe today's hearing really proved it. But I do give the director of DHHS a lot of credit for her song and dance today. She could be a rockette. It was very frustrating. 2 weeks in a row now, I'm just with UIA and this. It really is frustrating. So, but I can already see the question. What are you doing about it, Jack? Here's what we are doing about it. We're exposing it. We're letting you know. We're proving it, in my opinion. And it's important for you voters and you constituents and you citizens to know that. Okay? So hopefully we'll get some legislation. We'll move forward like we're doing with UIA. This is a long process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But today's hearing, I think, really proved to me that science and data, was swag. Scientific wild ass guess. Talk to you next week.